Some big, commanding power forwards have worn the number 16 jumper with absolute pride, none more so than Jonathan Brown. Let's take a look at some of his spectacular marks. This one, the greatest of all time, and unfortunately Jonathan had to end his career through too many head knocks and concussion, but I don't think he'd changed the way he played. He was a superstar, Jonathan Brown. 3 premierships, all Australians, 3 best and fairest, 5 times leading goal kicker, captain, courageous Jonathan Brown. He's in the Hall of Fame as well. Big Jono, and he just did this amazingly well, kicked big goals, big moments, Jonathan, and he won flags in virtually his first 3 years of his career.
What a presence he had as well. He just knew where he was as an opposition player. Every time he went out on the field, he was coming out. A former teammate of mine, Warren Tredrea, perhaps doesn't get enough credit for what a star he was, and for 4 seasons in a row, he was the All-Australian centre forward, the toughest position to play
in that Brisbane Lions era.
Yeah, so it was an incredible career. He was so good below his knees and on his non-dominant side, as we're showing there. So 4-time best and fairest, 4 All-Australians, premiership captain. This one was in the prelim final where he does the bow before Stevie stitches up the next week. But excellent player, so professional, and you know that was the best moment of his career with Matty Primus injured. He captained that premiership in 2004.
Yes, another number 16, so a good friend of mine, Billy Brownless, number 16 down there at the Cats, known as the decoy because he did have Gary Ablett Sr. down there in the forward line with him, but Billy was able to manage 198 games, he kicked 441 goals, he was an All-Australian player himself and a 2-time leading goal kicker for the Cats. So
68 goals in finals in 17 games.
And a very, very good finals record, and he holds the record for the most amount of goals, I think, is it either at Carrara?
Yes.
Yeah. As he, no, Gabba.
Gabba, he's 11. So.
As he keeps telling us, he rolls up each week to the Gabba game and they say, you want to buy a record? And he says, I've already got the record there. It's an old joke of his. Hey, we're talking about clutch moments. David Mundy's got as many as anyone when it's all said and done, over 376 games. Now, this is the one he missed after a siren, but you can just have a look at it before we get to one that he nailed. I mean, he hasn't missed it by much. A bit like your one, you missed, Lotto, a couple of times, but he was such a gun player, only exited the system recently. This was in the period of Richmond having the 2016 season before all the success took off, and you can just see the heartache that he personally gave them when he nailed this shot from that distance. And yeah, as clean a player as there's been.
And even dominated the Carlton draft game recently, which others weren't able to do.
He did it twice, the Richmond Damo.
And this is the one that actually came after the siren, having done it to the Tigers prior to that, close to this final siren. But to do that in those circumstances, at that ground, it's...
Did he have 30 and kicked 6 in the Carlton draft game? Kane, you only had 6 touches.
That's not true, Brownie.
I think it is. Okay, a former coach of mine, Terry Wallace of Fame, and number 16. 4-time best and fairest winner, Terry Wallace, you see there, getting belted by Rod Grinter. That was a nasty incident, had his jaw rewired. And then they met each other at Cheers nightclub not that long after that, and it was a very tense standoff between the two of them.
He's never played the next week from memory, despite having his mouth smashed.
He was tough.
That would be 14 weeks you'd get for that.
He was known as the Plough, so in and under. What a good play. He went with the Pat Cash headband. The only man that I knew to wear leather pants as a coach. And he also had the solarium in his house. He had everything. He was cool before it was meant to be cool. But what a great player he was.
And a great footy brain, player Wallace. In 1995, round 16, Hawthorn were playing the Brisbane Bears, and they were 51 points up at 3/4 time, and the coach of Hawthorn decided to take his team into the shade because it was a bit hot there. And listen to the commentary at 3/4 time of Matty Campbell when the Hawks were up by 51 points.
I guess if you're a coach, Robert Walls is trying to use every available tool that he has. He's pointed out the fact that Hawthorn went to their 3/4 time huddle in the shade, trying to allude that they were tired and they wouldn't run out the last quarter.
Well, Robert Walls has used it to his players. Said, look at those blokes over there. They've had to use the shade. They're not going to run out this game. And amazing, look at some of the names. There's Craig McRae, kicks the goal on the run, and some of the father-sons that are involved in this game. So you've got an Ashcroft who's there. You've got a Fletcher who's there. So you see Ashcroft here, kicks one over his head. So some famous names, Cornsey, getting involved. There's Lawrence, Stevie Lawrence. He puts them in front from 51 points down. They get up and win this game of football. Vossi played. There's Adrian Fletcher. His son Jasper is now playing. So it's a great one to look back on through the week.
Yes, another round 16 moment was the moment that Ben Cousins come back to play his game for the West Coast Eagles at Subiaco. His stats that day were unbelievable. He had
38.
Well, 38 disposals in a 12-point win after and a Hemi then finished off his career later on. But he was just a running machine. He was one of those players that when you go out onto the footy field, he just had that, aura about him and the slick, oiled arms. You walk past him thinking, geez, he's a good-looking bloke.
When he came on,
You were able to keep up
on
with
the
him,
ground
Kane?
that day, I did okay, but they had a couple of good midfielders as well.
Yeah.
Daniel Kerr and Chris Jard, and Fletcher was pretty good as well. But
Damo, how long had he been out for?
16 weeks.
16 weeks,
Yeah,
yeah.
missed it. And then
38.
can't come back first up in racehorse parlance, as you've alluded to, and to get that many touches. And then, extraordinary.
2012 Lordo, where Carmichael Hunt kicked the winning goal after the siren, and Paul Roos described this in commentary as the worst 50 seconds he's ever seen in football, and he was having a crack at Richmond over that and broke down a number of mistakes that they made. But was it a success? Probably not. Damo,
No, it wasn't. I mean, no matter what slant you want to put on it. I mean, this moment was, obviously.
How good was this? So it's a terrific finish and a great moment for him, and the scenes were extraordinary. But across the board,
Yeah, extraordinary big name in rugby league, and I think it took out
The experiment of NRL players didn't work, Damo,
No, it
let's
didn't.
be honest.
Israel
They
Folau
got
was-
too much money, it was a joke.
Yeah, well, he got $1.2 million to play for the Suns, and $1 million of that was outside the salary cap. It was ambassadorial.
What we always discuss on this show is what is everybody's favourite segment? What's the most popular segment? Now, Lordo said, I think after last night, Dan Houston can hear the goals after the siren. I want to extend out my deep dive to include shots after the siren, Lordo.
And I'm going to start with Six Kernahan, round 22, 1987. This actually got Carlton to finish on top of the ladder, and they went on and won the premiership in 1987. So here's him taking a great mark. What a player he was, Six Kernahan. He was captain from a young age when he came over from South Australia. And this is a tough kick.
Yeah.
And he kicks, that was his sixth for the day, Damo, to get them on top of the ladder.
And they were behind all day in that particular game. He got them up single-handedly and it set them up to then win that premiership, with Dunstall not being able to play in the grand final itself. But without that moment, they wouldn't have been so well set up. I'm going with Jamie Elliott's effort last year. I mean, we talked about Dan Houston. This is every bit as good as that. And the stream of play, yet again, Collingwood did this and do this regularly. You can see now Bianco, of all players, getting that ball just in the position where Elliott took it. And like Houston, knew the amount of time left on the clock, knew that he had to kick it for his team to win, and then went back and did that. It's as cool a moment as we'd seen until last night. Yeah. Extraordinary stuff.
And from my teammate Tommy Hawkins, here we have a look at the piece of play that leads into his match-winning goal. Actually, he just missed the kick before Selwood hit him up, so there was a risk take that pulled one across his left foot to get it to Selwood. He lowered the eyes and hits Hawkins, and then I'm watching from behind this. It was never missing. I've gone to pick him up and realised he's about 150 kilos. I think I pulled the back muscle and missed the next 2 weeks.
Oh, what about poor old Jimmy Steins when he ran through the mark and Gary Bacanara got a 50-metre penalty and kicked this one in 1987 to send the Hawks into the grand final, which they won the next week. So absolute heartbreak. That is going to be a Dan Houston-style kick from 55. But Jimmy runs through the mark.
It's still a good kick from 36 or 7 or 38 or whatever it was, but this is a good kick.
Not sure if you remember leading up to this, Simon Eisholt had a shot from about 5 metres out and kicked it at right angles.
Yes.
And then he goes back and slots it. Look at the crowd, look at the outfits, look at the fashion. He goes back and slots that, and the scenes there to send them into a grand final. Like, the stakes for that couldn't be any higher. So what a moment that has been in the history of the game.
Something a bit more recent was Jack Nunes when he was at the Blues. They were over in Perth playing against the Dockers, and outside the boundary, similar to what the Elliott one was. Should have been a Michael Gibbons free kick down the line, but instead they got it and it was in Jack Nunes' hands. A wonderful kick of the football, Jack Nunes, but this one outside the boundary line, and this nailed it in the wet like last night, and you don't strike them any sweeter than that. That is a big one.
Oh, amazing, and we could have put Robbie Gray in as well, but we didn't have enough time for that. But the Malcolm Blight, some will say this is the greatest of all time. I know Damo thinks so.
Still the best, Lordo.
Still the best.
He kicked 3 goals in the last 5 minutes.
Is he, Lordo? There's the point of the square.
Are we talking 80?
Optus Oval's only small. There's the point of the square there.
It's gone 80.
85 metres, Brownie.
85 metres.
It's gone into row 28.
What do you think, Brownie? You're not sure?
Well, it's gone back 15 metres, but I think he kicked it from about 65.
Now, Stevie J is across everything, and you spotted one in the under-18s yesterday, Steve.
Yeah, I did. My deep dive, Lloydie, has led to we celebrate our champions, but I just want to give a bit of credit to a young kid from the Northern Knights, young Davin Cameron, who's kicked this in the dying seconds of the game in Tasmania to win it. So we look at the Daniel Wells goal that was goal of the year probably about 10 years ago. Have a look at this in slow motion. Players all around him. He had the nous and the skill to pick it up mid-air.
Couple of seconds.
And Jackie Chan kick it through for the match winner. So well done, son.